I've been networking for 6 months. I still don't know anyone.
We gotta do a speed run.
So what do you do?
Or more than your job.
Look, I just work here, see? I move the merchandise from A to B, no questions asked.
I want to encourage, hopefully, you bear to follow your passions. Hopefully I can bring you some happiness. The days of sticking with one job to retirement are long gone. Young workers prioritize happiness over workplace loyalty, often out of necessity. There's a calculus. If I'm never going to get that stability, then I'm going to do what I can do to be happy now. But the analysis is saying, hold up, the drug keeps getting pulled up under us. We think we're finally going to cruise on wealth, own a home, pay off student loans, afford a kid or two. But then there's another disruption.
This is not my life.
There's a calculus of, if I'm never going to get that stability, then I'm going to do what I can to be happy now. Goodness. One of the more telling indicators of that shift now in how employees think about how they work shows up in the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Workers between the ages of 55 and 64 remain with an employee for a median of 9.9 years, compared with 2.8 years for 25 to 34-year-olds. Over 90% of millennials, people born in 1980s to 1990s, say they expect to change jobs every 3 years. That's a lot. Jeez, goodness. Now, Wallace offers a framework for managers and aspiring managers to work in a balanced, self-fulfilling way, changing landscape based on the 3 core tenets, okay? You, sir, bear friend, are more than your job.
This is who I am.
That's okay. Don't define yourself by just job. Older generations are going to feel this most acutely. Equating your identity with your occupation is problematic because companies are not rewarding loyalty with tenure. We're seeing layoffs across the board, and senior employees aren't protected from these headwinds. When your identity is your job, it's going to be harder for you to see your options. If you recognize that individuals are greater than the sum of the previous experiences, then you can think more broadly about competencies rather than just credentials. The longer you equate your identity with occupation, the more that's how the market will see you as well. Diversification is key. Just as you wouldn't dump all of your money into one stock, you should invest all your hopes, dreams, and ambitions into one company. It's very sage advice, really. This means having a multiplicity of skills, networks, industries, and irons in the fire, and that might also mean multiple income streams. There's never anything wrong with that. I mean, don't go beyond that. Hopefully that serves most people well. Okay, for example, if you're a white-collar professional services company, generative AI is knocking at your doorstep. If you can only keep people in the roles they've been, you've won a ton of flexibility. Instead, they should be thinking about stretch assignments and rotations. Allowing folks to try new things that interest them, rebalance early and often. A good portfolio has a balance of stocks and bonds based on your current financial picture. It's not a linear progression. I recently went through a chapter of my life when I had my first child and then my second shortly thereafter. I needed a very different allocation of my portfolio in order to have flexibility, autonomy, income stability, and good health insurance. I recognize this chapter is merely that. A chapter I will reallocate again when I'm in a different place. We need to allow highly ambitious professionals to have chapters of life that require reallocation of the time, talents, and ambitions. Oh, I love that. She urges workers to embrace the start of a new chapter, being attuned to feeling stressed and overly stretched instead of resisting it due to wanting to appear unflappable. We need to allow highly ambitious professionals to have chapter. Yeah, we just read that. Job can be just one way you meet your needs, and I hope that managers will recognize that it actually increases job satisfaction and the stability of your employee base if you embrace this notion that employees can have other things outside of work. Managers lead and the rest will follow. Let's see. What's incredibly freeing about this state of constant disruption is that we're given a space to grow, reinvent ourselves to meet life as it shows up rather than having to forecast at 18 or 22 or even 30 where you're going to be at 70. Good stuff. Thank you. Who wrote this? Give me a shout out. Thank you, Miss Christina and Kara. Beautiful. 2023. Okay. Greater Good magazine. Oh, look at that. Okay. How not to live. Your job define you. Finding meaning, connection, and identity in our work can be incredibly fulfilling. Work has been so all-consuming for many that we constantly drive ourselves to work harder and longer. Right now, so often we treat work as the central axis around which the rest of our life orbits and shove everything else into margins. The central question of the book is, how do you pursue meaningful work without letting the work subsume who you are? Oh, is this like a whole This is a whole long bit. Simone. Mm, what do I say? There's different strokes for different folks. There are relationships with your family and your loved ones, people that you feel are near and dear. There are always ways to invest in your local community. We are all more than workers. We're also friends, siblings, parents, neighbors, citizens. What are the benefits of doing that? I think there are a number of benefits. Some are born out of research. For example, research shows that people who have greater self-complexity, who have cultivated other aspects of who they are, tend to be more resilient in the face of change. This makes sense intuitively. Beautiful. What gets in the way of us doing that? Good enough job. The good enough job. Oh, interesting. For example, the majority of Americans' healthcare is tied to their jobs, or if you're an immigrant, your ability to stay in this country is tied to your work. But I think there's also bottom-up reasons we live in such a work-centric society. I definitely found this out myself as I left the corporate world and began to work for myself. It wasn't my company or my manager who was driving me to work all the time. It was myself. I'd internalized a lot of that metrics of the market, if you will, and thought that if I wasn't getting ahead, then I was falling behind, especially with knowledge work and the economy that we live in now. Work can so easily expand like a gas and fill all of the unoccupied space. It creates a chicken and egg thing where people are working all the time so they don't know what to do themselves when they're not working. Why is the culture of work centricity so strong in the US compared to Europe and other places? Well, I've heard of a thing called 996, and that seemed pretty bad. Is that 996? No, you work like 9 to 9 and then 6 days a week? That's crazy. Okay. That wasn't in the US. Okay. We place an incredible subjective value on work in the US. We treat CEOs like celebrities. We plaster always do what you love on a wall of co-working spaces. You scroll through TikTok, LinkedIn, and there's so much content about finding ways to monetize your hobbies or turn your passions into a side gig, side grind. We're a country and we've created a culture that really idolizes work. And part of the fallout from that is the decline of our other sources of meaning and community and identity in people's lives, like neighborhood groups, organized religions. For many, work has taken their place. That's true. I mean, it's easy. It's pretty easy access. You're already there. At the individual level, it is important that we carve out time where working is not an option. The benefits of, say, going for a run, going to yoga class, or having a one-on-one date with a friend, is that you can't multitask when you're doing these things. You actually have to be invested in the present moment. Hopefully, yes. I argue in the book that the onus doesn't just fall on the individual. There's a distinction between the types of boundaries we can individually enact on the type of structural protections like policies about time or decoupling our basic human needs from our employment status that policymakers and governments and managers are better equipped to actually enforce. Japan has one of the most progressive parental leave policies in the world. New fathers are entitled up to a year paid time off. That's great. But in the last data I looked at, the paltry 5% of fathers took the time that they were allotted. That points to two prerequisites. We need the ability to do things other than work, and we need the cultural will to do so. Even from an early age, we start asking kids what they want to be when they grow up, and we become adults. A cocktail party banter becomes, "What do you do?" Oh, I think part of that will make a difference in part of what will make a difference is changing the conversation, allowing people to define themselves on their own terms by what they do for work. Does this message apply to everyone? What about people who are in economic situation where they have very time poor, outside of work? It's something that I wrestle with in the book. On one hand, even the question, what do you want to do, necessitates a certain level of privilege. First and foremost, I wrote the book with an eye toward white collar knowledge workers for this exact reason. The majority of people don't work to self-actualize, they work to survive. Gosh. And yet we all live in a culture where work centricity is particularly pronounced. There are two separate issues at the two ends of the income spectrum. For highest earners, it's putting expectation on work that our jobs are not always designed to bear. For the lowest earners, it's creating conditions where work can be better, but not all time consuming by necessity. When things like stagnant wages over the past 40 years, we've seen Americans have to work more hours just to put the same food on the table. And so another opportunity for there to be interventions at the structural level and the systems level. But in some ways, that's a different book. What have you realized about yourself through writing the book? For me personally, I was born smack dab in the middle of the millennial generation, and I had internalized a lot of these scripts about the value of, say, pursuing a dream job, thinking myself as work as directly tied to my work status. Prestige was a synonym for happiness and health. It seems like there's a lot of interest in the book. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Simone. Lovely stuff. Thank you, Kira. Lovely hair. What to do when success makes you lose touch with your identity? Is this long too? No, super short. Okay. Somewhere along the way, you learned how to read a room, how to anticipate what others needed before they said it, how to shapeshift just enough to say admired, promoted, or stay safe. You became highly competent at adapting your identity at being what the moment, the meeting, the mission demanded, and it worked. You delivered. You rose. You built a life, visible success. But lately, in the quiet spaces, like for a very specific person, okay. Woo, but lately, in the quiet spaces between the doing, something's been stirring. A haunting whisper that asks, if I start performing, who am I? This is the quiet cost of adaptation, achieving without anchoring, succeeding without self. Oh, okay. It's more common than we talk about, especially among high performing professionals. Okay, that makes sense. In fact, more than half of the US postgraduate workers say that job is central to their and to their identity and environment where productivity and performance are prized above all sets. It's easy to confuse your role with your worth. I'm just gonna okay. Ooh, the story of Jason, a master of adaptation. Jason had always been the go-to guy, smart, strategic, relational. He could always manage up, manage down, sideways without breaking a sweat. By 42, he's a COO of a global tech firm. On paper, everything looked ideal, but in coaching conversation with me one morning, he surprised himself with tears. I've been everything to everyone, and now I'm not sure who I am. I know how to play any role, but I don't know what's real anymore. Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever actually asked myself what I want. That's a long time to never ask that. 42 years. Jason's story isn't rare. It's the natural result of a system that rewards adaptation over authenticity. Why we lose our identity? I'm just going to do a quick run. Social conditioning, a need for approval, professional incentives. Ooh, that's gracious. 4 ways to return to yourself. Okay, notice the cost of over adaptation. Track what feels true and what doesn't. Create a spacious identity, not just roles. Practice micro acts of integrity. It's not too late to return. You can still be excellent. Yeah, just maybe I feel like the moral of the story is run. Maybe check in with yourself every once in a while. Consider. I'm not your mom. I tried Denmark's #1 secret to happiness for a year. It changed my life and made me more confident. Oh, that's so cute. I love all the color schemes here. Okay. For over 4 years, I've been a professor at Emory University's Go Business School. Before that, I worked in the corporate world. Organizations like Coca-Cola and IBM. Recently for work, I went to Denmark, one of the world's happiest countries, and teach a course called The Happiness Blueprint. I'm just wondering, like, what's the blueprint? I kicked my doom scrolling. Okay. I learned how to bookmark my joy for the future. What? I realized that one person's work is another stress relief. What are we eating for me? Anything in the kitchen is considered work. Baking was fun. Okay, I changed my definition of self-care. I felt less lonely. I stopped dreading small talk. I love small talk. Getting into a hobby is the #1 secret to happiness and balance. Fun. Okay, that's the moral of the story. I spent 41,000 renting in my rental apartment. What? That's a lot for an apartment. Well, okay. I mean, like, it's not yours. Okay. Anyway, having a hobby tied to happiness and well-being. News brief. Gosh, look at those beautiful plants. Oh, yeah. Let me read this. Oh, that's it. That's all. I don't think this is for me to read. Okay. Was it? People who have too many interests are more likely to be successful, according to research. Jack of all trades, master of the one, but oftentimes better than a master of one. That's the full thing, I think. The warning against being a generalist has persisted for hundreds of years in dozens of languages, equipped with knives all over, yet none is sharp. One people in China. In Estonia, it goes 9 trades, the 10th one's hunger. That's pretty bleak, honestly. Okay, yet many of these impactful individuals, both contemporary and historical, have been generalists. Musk, Jobs, Feynman, Ben Franklin, Edison, Da Vinci, Marie Curie, just to name a few. What's going on? If being a generalist was the path to mediocrity, why did the most comprehensive study of the most significant scientists of all history uncover 15 of the 20 were polymaths? Newton, Galileo, Aristotle, Kepler, Descartes. Oh no, Huygens, Laplace, Faraday, Pasteur, Ptolemy, Hooke, Leibniz, Euler, Darwin, Maxwell, all polymaths. If being a generalist was so ineffective, why are the founders of all 5 of the largest companies in the world, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Larry Page, Jeff Bezos, all polymaths who also follow the 5-hour rule? Are these legends just genius anomalies? Or are they people who we could and should imitate the errand of the modern polymath? What does that mean? I define a modern polymath as someone who becomes competent in at least 3 diverse domains and integrates them into a top 1% skill set. Oh, okay. Interesting. I'm not gonna read this, it's too long. I'm asleep. I'm so sorry. I'll give you the links though. Polymath Advantage 2 most creative breakthroughs come from via making a typical combination of skills with fun. It's easier and faster than ever to become competent in any skill. Yeah, true. Mm. Mm. So many combinations. Look at that. Cause of death. What? Ah. Ooh, it says you have to solve more complex problems. I love complex problems. So much fun. Make yourself anti-fragile. Boo-boo-boo-boo-boo-boo. Now we're going to 5 ways to pursue a passion project while working a full-time job. Boom. I'm a writer in case. They've got jokes. She's got jokes. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, thank you for that. I don't have the privilege of drawing or singing professionally. There's a reason they call work work. Okay, the freelance life hustle. You must be wondering why bother when we're all so busy as it is. Well, today's show, creative hobbies have numerous benefits for our happiness, well-being, and they can even aid in boosting productivity at work. Interestingly, a new study in Journal of Vocational Behavior found that spending more time on a hobby that's unrelated to our work has the power to boost our confidence at our jobs. Create a morning routine. We're just going to skim through this one too. We've got videos to edit, work in increments. Yes. Practice the 5 of 7 rule. So, okay, maybe not having to do everything every single day, but at least 5 days. I think I was reading what was the book? 12 week year. They said as long as you get around 80% a mark of a goal, you should be good in making progress long term. Okay, get enough sleep. Great. Beautiful stuff. Okay, that's all we got, folks. The video is late. We'll make another one on time. And then I love you so much. I hope you learned something and I hope you take care of yourself. Have a beautiful day. I'll see you soon.